Stretch Myers, Field Federal CTO for Axonius Federal Systems. Welcome, Stretch. Great to see you. What are the most important components to helping the Navy and Marine Corps hit their modernization transformation goals?
Yeah, so I've been getting that question a lot, not just the Navy, but the DoD as a whole. My whole background is actually working as a cyber engineer architecture in the DoD space. So I've been hands-on network on all of the networks for a very long time. And one of the things for transformation is, you have everyone focusing on AI and all these big buzzwords, but we're still struggling with the basics. How are we going to have all these cybersecurity involvement or enhancements when we still can't answer the question of where's our devices? What's the posture of our devices? And so I think for some of the transformation, when we can start focusing on getting back to the basics, then we can start moving forward with all the fun stuff. Let's do the AI, let's do the machine learning, let's get back to looking at SOARs again. Those were really hot, years ago. Now they're kind of circling back around with AI, trying to make them easier. So that's some of the things that I'm really looking forward to for the transformation of helping with that. Because when we can help with something that sounds simple, that isn't so simple, then we can start to take the hard things, make them easy, and then start tackling the real hard things like AI and how can we be more productive with it within the environment.
It's an interesting observation because I'm not surprised by all the discussion here about the advanced technologies that you just described.
Right.
What I am surprised by is the tremendous amount of discussion here about infrastructure.
Right.
And the kind of the fundamentals
right.
of delivering these capabilities.
Yeah, I spend most of my time doing the CTO stuff, talking to executive leadership. Every time I start describing, say, just our capability, for an example, they're like, oh, well, we already have that technology. We do that. And most of my time is education. No, you're paying a team of FTEs to hand make that you think is automation, when it's really a bunch of people behind the scenes automating that for you and whatever their visualization platform is. And so once they spend the time and look at the total cost of ownership and realize they could really get some true correlation to see the attack surface and the gaps in the environment, and then how it can really lead to bigger platforms and bigger AI initiatives, that's probably half my battle. And then once we demonstrate it, and then they get their engineerings to validate it, it goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Do you see more of a willingness to accept commercial technologies, things that already exist, than you have in the past?
Yeah, there's a lot of push coming from executive orders now to move more towards commercial off-the-shelf tools versus government off-the-shelf tools. You still have people that have built their career on that and they're having a hard time letting go. I've seen some folks do it better than others, where they're just adopting the commercial off-the-shelf tools and involving their babies, where others are just having a really hard time letting go. But you're starting to see come out of Congress and everything else where they're pushing the government. So you need to go more commercial off the shelf because it's supported. Where, a lot of these government off-the-shelf tools are using open source, the amount of FTEs, the security vulnerabilities, the development life cycle, it's just very involved. And a lot of time that gets masked behind large contracts that are probably 3 times the cost of an enterprise approach of a commercial-based vendor product.
If we take that one step further then, are there lessons learned or actual sectors in the private sector that an enterprise like the Pentagon can look at and say, well, they don't do the same thing we do, but they do similar things to what we do, and we can learn from them about how to solve the problems that we need to solve?
Yeah, a prime example of some of my meetings this morning. We have a lot of, so the whole reason I'm out here is we have a lot of activity going with big Navy, big Marines across the board. And it's so much activity. Anyone that knows the Navy, it's one big Navy that's very compartmentalized. They got so many of the different PEOs working in synergy, but doing their different things and talking. One of the things I have a fun time with is starting to bring all the different customers we're working with together and let them talk to each other. They're aware of each other, but they aren't aware they're doing some of the same initiatives together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really great when we overlap those meetings on purpose.
Yeah.
And tell them we're going to bring them in and introduce them, and they start exchanging notes of well, we're doing this, we're doing that. And then it just builds new working groups. We did similar type things in other parts of the Fed civilian government, where we introduced so many government folks together because they were doing similar missions that they developed working groups to keep talking. And anytime I can make that happen and connect the dots, it's no different than when I was on network supporting. And so it's just a lot of fun to get people to talk to each other that have a common mission.